From winning 8 Constructors' titles in a row to being outshined by Aston Martin of all teams, Mercedes seems to have fallen off its throne, and now it turns out this is partly happening because the team refuses to listen to Hamilton. You see, here's the thing about Lewis Hamilton. He's been doing this for a long time, and he's the second oldest guy on the grid. On top of that, he's driven several different cars for several different teams throughout his Formula One career. So basically, when he tells you what's wrong with a car, you better listen. Unfortunately, Mercedes did not, and the team is now struggling. Lewis Hamilton has claimed that Mercedes didn't listen to him over the development of the incredibly slow W14. Here's the thing. With the W13 in 2022, the team decided to try a new design direction – no side pods. And it failed. Rather than admitting their mistake and committing to a new design philosophy for 2023, the team just decided to make the W14 similar to the W13. You can't even defend the Silver Arrows squad because Hamilton repeatedly told them not to do that. Since they didn't listen to the guy, Mercedes had to face the consequences in Bahrain. The 7-time world champion finished 5th, while his teammate finished 7th. Lewis was over 50 seconds behind the race winner, Max Verstappen. Hamilton was also outpaced by Aston Martin's Fernando Alonso and Ferrari's Carlos Sainz at Sakir. So while many of us hoped that this year would be far better than 2022, the reality is that it might be worse. Because now we've got Aston Martin in the mix. The weekend was heartbreaking for the 103-time Grand Prix winner as he complained that his team was on the wrong track. After the race, he even stated that the W14 wasn't the right car. But that criticism wasn't nearly as bad as all the things he said on the BBC's Checkered Flag podcast. Here, just take a look at what he said. Last year, there were things I told them. I said the issues that are with the car. He also stated, I've driven so many cars in my life, I know what a car needs. I know what a car doesn't need. And he's not wrong now, is he? It's all about accountability. Mercedes owning up to their mistake and acknowledging that they didn't listen to Hamilton. They also need to acknowledge that the car is nowhere near where it needs to be, and the team needs to put in a lot of work to make it competitive. Hamilton stated that there are just so many points that need to be looked into when it comes to the development of the car. For example, it's got bad balance through the corners, so the team needs to huddle up and work on fixing these issues. Hamilton did acknowledge, however, that the team has won multiple world championships and is still a great one. It just hasn't gotten things right this time. They didn't get things right last year either. But according to Hamilton, that doesn't mean the team can't correct its course and get things right moving forward. The lesson here for Mercedes is to maybe listen to one of the best Formula One drivers. And the thing is, Toto Wolff has admitted that there's a problem. But it's too late now, isn't it? Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff has admitted that the Silver Arrows squad will need to ditch its zero-side pod concept to be competitive again. It's upsetting to see that he's realizing this now after Hamilton constantly told him that this was something that needed to be ditched. You see, most of the grid has followed the design philosophy pioneered by Red Bull last year. In fact, Aston Martin followed it a bit too closely. But the point is, Red Bull got things so good, Mercedes' George Russell has predicted that the Austrian outfit might win all 23 races this year. That's because, according to Toto Wolff, Mercedes has lost a year in development. To have a steeper development curve, the team needs to take difficult decisions, and it needs to take them fast. That's exactly what Aston Martin did, didn't it? And just look at how strong they are. People are predicting, albeit unrealistically, that they might end up dethroning Red Bull. Just a heads up, that's definitely not going to happen. But still, from the bottom of the midfield to P2 in the 2023 Constructors standings so far, the team has come a long way. All because they weren't scared to do what Mercedes couldn't. So if Mercedes does start from its base, it could come back stronger and finally be able to chase Red Bull. Because at the end of the day, that's the main goal for the Silver Arrows squad right now. But that journey won't be easy. According to Toto, Mercedes had one of the worst days in racing. Everything that's been going on with the team has disheartened him, just as the Silver Arrows squad disappointed in Bahrain. At this point, he should start realizing that he messed up by not listening to Lewis. Mercedes is nowhere near competitive enough. And the worst bit? They have the 4th fastest car on the grid. Just a couple of years ago, it was unimaginable for Mercedes to be slower than Ferrari and Aston Martin. But this year, the team will be fighting Alpine for P4. When talking to the media about all of this, Wolff was in no mood whatsoever to find a silver lining. He told it as it was, admitting that the team lacked pace, front, right, and center. Toto even admitted that everything that happened during the Grand Prix reflected preseason testing. The poor guy even had to admit that Aston Martin was faster than his team. Red Bull, though? That team is on another planet. It reminded him of Mercedes' best years, when the team was over a second ahead of all its rivals. He admitted that the team needs to put in one step after another and improve. Wolff will also finally listen to Lewis Hamilton and take his advice on the car a bit more seriously. And that's exactly why we should be hopeful for the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. Before I get into anything about Emilia-Romagna, I need to let y'all know that that's the 6th race of the season. So Mercedes will suffer for the next 4 races, and the gap between them and their rivals will probably widen. But there's some hope, because the team is expecting some massive upgrades to be ready for the car by the time they hit Imola, and those upgrades will improve the situation quite a bit. However, Wolff did admit that it just won't be enough. It won't be as radical as it needs to be to ensure that the team is fighting for wins. Instead of Aston's success making him hopeless, it inspired the Austrian boss. Looking at Aston's situation, Toto stated that this is good news for Mercedes because there's a lot of Mercedes in that car's DNA. In fact, it's even powered by their power unit. The team now knows what to look at to recover. However, just like Toto, Lewis isn't that happy with the bleak situation. He stated that the Ferraris were just quicker and would have gotten more points if Charles Leclerc hadn't retired. Even though Sainz isn't the fastest bloke on the grid, he kept pulling away from Lewis, and at that point, there was nothing he could have done. "We're miles off," Lewis stated in disdain when talking about his distance from the rivals. But while what Lewis said about Mercedes not listening to him was correct, many fans didn't think so. Some Twitter users disliked that he threw a team that won him 6 championships under the bus. One user even stated that it's not a good idea to have a blame culture and that Lewis should have been a bit nicer with his words. But at the end of the day, the point is, he's experienced and he should have been listened to. And that's all for Lewis Hamilton claiming that Mercedes refused to listen to him.